Time for another edition of the online dinner party where we invite different people to come through and see what they've got going on in their lives and what they're doing in their life and with their art forms, entrepreneurship, and a number of other things that they might be accomplishing and all along those lines. I know we're waiting for a musician to come in because my good friend Eris, who has brought a couple of artists to us, has arranged for him to come in and talk about his art form and some of the things that he's doing. I think he's in the entrepreneurship space as well, if I remember correctly, and all along those lines. But we'll hope that he makes it and see who else comes along. I've definitely invited about three or four people to come and got one guest already in the house. I know a lot of people are dealing with what we're dealing with in this area, which is the whole idea of snow and all along those lines. So definitely some people are thinking about snow in house snow conversation as well. So I'll start off with Deborah, bring her in, and also bring in William. But I know here in North Carolina, we just got a little bit of ice. But there's an old wives' tale that if there's a little bit of snow laying around, it's looking for its companions to come, and all along those lines. And we know that there's slivers of snow here and there, still here in Durham, and of course there's still some ice spots. And of course, the kids have been dealing with remote learning and all along those lines. So I think they're expecting another winter storm to hit us this weekend, and that could impact folks' activities as well as classes and things along those lines. So definitely, it is become a winter wonderland in the various parts of the country, including in New York, because I know some of my friends in New York and New Jersey got hit real hard, and all along those lines, and definitely some friends of mine in DC area. So I'm going to bring in Deborah, see what she's got going on. And I know that I've had her on before. And I've also got William, and we'll see who else joins the online dinner party if any other guests come along. But definitely start off with Deborah. Deborah, how are you doing? Is it snowing where you're at? I know that you're always trying to bring a ray of sunshine to people and all along those lines. And you've got your daily decisions. So how are you doing on this day? And is it snowing where you are, or are you expecting snow? Because I think they said maybe 75% or more of the country is under winter weather or winter weather watches.
Well, I am in Manhattan and the snow is behind us, but of course the streets are pretty slushy. But we keep going. We have energy. It's pretty cold out there, Mark. Really cold, actually.
Yeah, I just
How
stepped outside and I was feeling it was cold, but not as cold as New York and everything. But they are talking about some teen temperatures this evening. I think we're in the high 30s right now, so we're just above freezing. But as soon as that sun goes down, it'll plummet like it's been doing these last couple of days. So I think one day it was even around 11 degrees and everything like that. So yeah, we've been dealing with some cold weathers as well because you are right there in the heart of it in Manhattan and all along those lines. So how is Manhattan treating you these days? How is New York City treating you these days?
pretty good. It's my energy. I was born here, Mark, and it just puts a pep in my step. No matter what's happening, there's something always going on, something to look at, something to be a part of. I really love it. I love to travel too and go other places, but Manhattan, New York City, it's in my heart.
Yeah, that's definitely dearly in your heart and all along those lines. So I know that that's big time on your heart and all in that space. So I know you're always thinking about that. Tell us about your daily decisions. And I'm going to bring in William, who is an artist here in the area, a long time friend of mine and a friend of my dad, who is an artist as well, and all along those lines. So tell us about your daily decisions and how those play in the different things that you do and how you've gotten around doing this amazing effort to bring happiness and joy to the world when we've got all these hard things going on in the world.
That's right. We're here to protect our mental energy and make us feel just a little bit better. And that's what everything is a decision. Everything we do factors into what we're going to choose to be more positive or to be more negative. And I know life is messy, there's no magic bullet. There, there will always be difficult times, but when we show up and we're a little more positive rather than negative, it just makes the day a little easier. And what I love about that is the moment we choose change, that's when change happens. And it's easy to be stuck in a rut. I admit it. I was stuck in a rut, a negative cycle, burnt out and exhausted. But I said I wanted to reconnect with my sunshine. The whole thing is, I wrote a book. What I like to say is we want fewer days that suck and to reconnect with our sunshine. You can't be happy every second, every minute of the day. There will be days that suck, but it's how we approach it, how we approach positivity. And what I like is that the science behind it, our brains thrive on patterns. So the more we create small shifts, small positive steps forward, we make these positive habits that stick. And over time, it makes a big difference.
That makes a lot of sense. Hey, William, I know you've been involved in a lot of things, including being in the corporate world, but also a father. And I know that your daughter sometimes comes to Satos and all along those lines. It was probably regretting that they couldn't make it this past weekend. And I'm not sure whether they'll be able to make it this weekend with the weather doing what the weather is doing. But hopefully the weather will cooperate and they'll be able to have class this coming Saturday. But we'll just see how the weather plays out. But no matter what, I know that she'll have that ray of sunshine that Deborah is talking about and all along those lines. But just share a little bit with Deborah and myself and the audience how you got involved in art world, because I know that you are a tremendous artist here in the area, and I know that you've been part of an art collective that Willie Bigelow had for a while and everything along those lines. So just tell me how you got involved in the art world and whether you were always a drawer and a creative or whether it came to you later in life.
Thank you. First, thanks so much for having me, Mark. I think we talked a couple years ago about me joining in on one of these conversations, so I'm so happy to be here. Great to meet you, Deborah, and I'm looking
You
forward to
too.
hearing Ray of Sunshine. I appreciate you talking about our mind being drawn to patterns, and thought about when you mentioned indigo. My daughter, our 4-year-old daughter, goes to the African dance class, NATO, on Saturday. So, like you said, she's come to expect that that's part of her daily or her weekly routine, right? Going there on Saturday, she goes to little gym on another day out of the week. And so indigo has become very used to certain aspects of her life just being the normal sort of way that her life unfolds. And so that this 4-year-old daughter and my family that I have, I guess, has like enlightened me in lots of ways and daily sort of, what do you call it, kind of realizations I've been able to come by virtue of like being a father. And so my being an artist has been something that I feel like I've been all my life, but as early as I can remember, I always loved drawing, and it was always something that was encouraged by my family and folks at school. If you ever been the kid in class that was good at drawing or had a kid in class that was good in drawing, people seem to sort of acknowledge that that's their skill. And that's something that I often brought to whatever classroom I was in growing up. And then I majored in painting and drawing at college at UW-Whitewater, University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. I, in 2011, started a Master of Fine Arts program at UNC Chapel Hill. And I finished that program in 2013 and decided to stay here in North Carolina. So I'm originally from Chicago, moved to Wisconsin when I was 11, and lived there through college and a couple years after college, and then moved down this way. So my involvement in the arts in the area, including like with folks over at Hayti, has been a real blessing and an opportunity to share in a place that I didn't grow up, but has become home for me. So I paint lots of faces. I think the painting behind me is kind of an outlier with a little basketball in it. But a lot of my work is of faces of people I know, family members, strangers. And this, I think, even before it became a career, or even before I went to college for it, that was something I was doing, was drawing faces of usually of people that I could find in magazines. Like I used to collect like Vibe magazine and The Source, and would draw like pictures of celebrities, just for fun. And after a while, I think maybe late high school, early college, folks would ask me to, do drawings for hire for them. So I think pretty early on, it became a kind of career pursuit, but it's always just been something I've gotten a joy out of being able to look at something and draw something that looks like that thing I can observe, kind of paying attention to my environment that way through making. So that's kind of like part of my background. What sort of the origin, part of the origin story for me is having been encouraged to do something that I enjoy doing and realizing how much I kind of like needed that push. I think it became really apparent to me during the pandemic when I didn't have as many opportunities to share the work, that it didn't feel as fulfilling to make the work. You know, some folks make and they create out of a sheer sense of like it's something that gives them internal joy. And I have that, but I realized how much I was sort of looking forward to being able to, I guess, have the validation of someone experiencing what I created.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I know that you named your daughter Indigo, and that's a color that people forget and all along those lines. So I was wondering whether when you got together with your significant other, whether that was the reason for giving her that name and whether she has inherited any of that creative spirit and all along those lines.
Oh man, she definitely has. And she creates, I think, on all fronts, enjoys it, and she's very strong-willed and intentional about when she creates. So it's funny, we were on the phone with my uncle last night, and he asked her if she was going to make her if she was going to be an artist like her dad. She said, I am an artist, or whatever. Like I said, she already is that, right? She enjoys drawing, but what I noticed is that she's not so quick to just try to draw like me, draw something that looks like something. She more prone to making marks and being really insistent that she intends for those marks to look the way that they do. So she's already like really sort of self-assured in the way that she approaches things and really confident, which I really appreciate. And her naming came from both my wife and I, Leticia, and I, my love of blue for sure, but also a reference to Mo Better Blues' character, Indigo, the sort of one, you know, how they had that love triangle with Bleak, and his two love interests, and one of them being Indigo. So both of us like a love of Spike Lee films, and so Indigo's name was inspired by those two places, like my love of color, and also being Spike Lee enthusiasts.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Deborah, I noticed that you got the smiley faces and the sunshine behind you. So do you always have those? Are those in the car and everywhere else? Because I do notice that they're behind you on this particular day and all along those lines. So is that part of what your mission is to make sure that people realize that they need that sunshine? Because one of the things that I've talked about on this show before and on other shows is this notion that I have a good friend of mine who's a artist out of California, and he actually had me as part of a vocal troupe that was called the Funky Eye Puppets, and that was during the pandemics and all along those lines. And he was a member of the George Lucas camp and everything like that. But sometimes when we would be doing workouts and training, acting workouts and training, he would try to make sure that we got out of our heads, because sometimes as adults we get into our heads and we forget that creative mindset and we forget that love of the creative that we had at childhood, because a lot of times in the corporate world they try to push that out of you and everything like that. So he would try to make sure that we were getting more of that sense of play, as he used to like to call it. And we would do a lot of different characters. I think mine was Echo. There were a couple of other characters as well, and there's even one that was a talking blender that I remember a friend of mine did and everything like that. So I was just wondering your notion of, and this is for both of you, but I'll start with you, Deborah, as to, do we do a disservice by our kids by pushing them away from the notion of play and the notion of creativity as they get older?
Well, first I want to address what you said about the smiley faces and everything. It's very intentional, because when we surround ourselves with upbeat things, colors, artist. I was an artist. That was my first half of my career before I went into sales. But so I relate to both of you very well. But intentionally speaking, when we read things that lift us up, watch things that make us smile and laugh, it boosts our endorphins. It really does. Looking at joyful memories, even what they do on the phones and showing you these memories, it's intentional that if you look at them, you remember things that are positive, and it triggers the reward center in our brain. I'm really about the science, understanding very simply the why behind what we do. And I urge people to be very intentional about what you look at. Doom scrolling, you know what? Limit that. Limit screen interaction. Yes, we have to do certain things. And I think it's very helpful to have all the tech. I like it. But also stepping away from it. Community, like we're doing this, we're just talking, we're just having a nice time, we're smiling, we feel good. Smiling, you just do it, it makes you feel good. And that backs into exactly what you asked about, which William will talk about next, is the play. It's what we do today is hiding behind screens, focused on what somebody else is doing. It's really important, and it boosts our endorphins to welcome community, to go out and have some fun, however that is for you. I don't want to ever force something on someone. I like to hike. That makes me feel good. Whatever it is, if painting and drawing, like William said, that brings the joy. And it's really important to protect our mental health, especially, and I've been writing some things like this, amidst the bad news. I'm not a political person. We're not going to talk about it here at all, never. But honestly, studies have shown how that brings people down. It makes them more depressed. So one of the shifts to create more positive energy is to go out and play, go out and have a good time. Get rid of the negative in your life and welcome in the positive. And however you like to do it, make time, because you're doing this to serve you. We all need to serve ourselves because it's not selfish. When we do this, we make ourselves feel better. We're better for everybody around us. Everybody around us will feel our joy, our sunshine.
Yeah, no doubt. What's your take on that, William? Because, like I said, I know that you definitely encourage your daughter to still be involved in play. But if she gets older, she's only 4 right now. But if she hits those teen years and even the preteen years, I'm sure she'll get caught up in the devices and all those lines. Like, as you know, I have 2 nephews, and those nephews are definitely in that space, with the oldest one getting ready to go off to college next year and everything like that. But I was just wondering your take on, do we sometimes get so much in that wanting to be in the corporate world that, and some of the other business worlds, that we forget about that nature of play? And how did you maintain that even with your wife and your family? You're on mute. You got to unmute.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so thank you so much for that question. I really appreciate Deborah's reminder about the importance of play. I think wherever you happen to be in life, whatever vocation you have, I think a couple of nights ago we were literally playing Uno, and we were playing some numbers game that we found online. So this is me, my wife, my daughter, and my 16-year-old niece, and my 16-year-old other daughter. Right? So not just the joy that was happening, but the sort of like the thought processes, the creativity that was like on display, even seeing Indigo's like response to winning or losing, or just like the fun that was happening, the bond that was being built there, was a reminder of just how important play is. And now we're talking about literal playing games, right? I guess places that we sort of easily identify as play. But I think within art, I try to remind myself of the play that I want to pursue, right? Like the sort of figuring out without necessarily having an end point in mind, right? The sort of, whether it's using certain colors in a playful way, in a way that's like not predictable or not already sort of with a determined outcome, right? So I think the joy of having an experience that lets you see the world around you and the world before you in a certain way without these kind of like predictive outcomes or expectations for certain rewards at the end, but more about engaging in the thing in itself. And I think I hope to continue to engage in Indigo that way, that like, since I have the energy now, for us to, literally play, play with our, like, get physical, running around, playing hide and seek, all this stuff. But also, I think there's some like some mental places that we can play with the way that we think and the way that we are creative, that I always want to encourage her to do. And I always want to remind myself that's really important for practice, to uncover things, because everything leans so much towards like, how much money can I make from this? Or does this fit sort of squarely within like what's expected or what's tradition? I think there's no room for like discovery or fun. I mean, like I feel like your career, if we're talking about career, should be fun. And if it's not about career, your daily life should have some fun in it, should have some joy in it. And so I think play has to be a part of like our lives for sure. I absolutely agree.
No, and William, along those same lines, I was just wondering, because I know a lot of artists, and I have, as you know, an artist that is my pops, but also an artist that is among my friend and acquaintance circle, and all along those lines. And a lot of times, artists, whether they're musicians or whether they are visual artists or a number of other artists, talk about that muse, and sometimes that muse might be an inspiration from what they see in their daily life. It might be that muse that they get from the Most High. The muse can be coming from a variety of circles. I mean, some people even tease my dad because he's got that playful turtle that he has with his display.
We got the book.
The turtle, and all along those lines, that is part of one of his muses that he might even turn into a book at some point or another. But I'm just wondering, what is your personal creative process, and what is your muse in how you go about it? I'm thinking that your daughter inspires you. I'm thinking your wife inspires you, but I'm also thinking that, like Deborah, you might be inspired by Mother Nature. I know that sometimes I'll use my phone and be inspired by the birds outside. I was actually teasing my mom yesterday and all along those lines, because, as I said, we were having cold weather, and on yesterday I noticed I actually woke up probably a little bit earlier than I might have wanted to get up, and part of it was there was a chattering sparrow outside of my window. And as I was saying to my mom and my aunt and a couple of other people I told this story to, I'm convinced that the sparrow was trying to tell me, let me in the house. It's cold out here, because I'm not really used to this cold weather, because I'm a sparrow and I'm used to warm weather, and we got this deep freeze going on. So I'm pretty sure that sparrow was trying to talk me into letting it into the house. I didn't let it into the house, and I haven't heard it since. So it's probably flown away and realized it was cold, and it'll come back later and everything like that. But I was wondering, what was your own personal muses?
Thank you for that. I think my muses shift over time, and one particular muse that I have right now, kind of an obsession, is related to family and ancestry. I've been really heavy into searching for known and unknown family stories and more clarity around that. But I'm also really curious about this idea of like oneness, sort of universal oneness. You and I had a great conversation maybe a couple months ago at the celebration for your dad and Linda, right?
Right.
And you had put me on to Bootsy Collins of the Power One.
Right. Yes.
And I've been really fascinated to talk to more and more people about this concept of the oneness of all things, and really having more revelations about just how many people are interested in this idea, I guess, in wherever they're coming from with it, or whatever their familiarity might be. And I'll rotate my screen a little bit to show this other painting, this little study of a sphere.
Mm-hmm.
And so thinking about like something as simple as this sort of like study of light on form, but that on that object in particular, this sphere, even that. So here in the basketball, right, that's like associated with play. But the form of it is this sphere, and the earth is a sphere, and wherever we can name in nature and in the universe, the occurrence of this particular form, that there's something about what that form represents to me that seems so whole, so complete, but also so simple. And so that idea in itself of oneness, of completeness or lack of completeness, has been one that's really been inspiring me lately. And not all of it has manifested as a painting. But but just in my thinking in terms of what I'm inspired by creatively, I feel like that's been like my fuel lately, is like thinking about where is there a place where something is not whole that it can be, and where am I identifying gaps where there aren't actually any gaps, between people, between things, between ideas. Does that make sense? Like kind of
Yeah, that makes a
in
lot
my
of sense and everything. And I'm seeing where you're going with that. And just really quickly, even in that same line, Deborah, I know a lot of people have been inspired by and inspiration can also be a form of music as well, by, and not to get political, but by the walk that the monks are taking and all along those lines. As a matter of fact, they were just staying in my elementary school. I believe they were there either yesterday or the day before. So when my parents moved to Warrenton, which is a rural town in North Carolina, the first school that I went to was actually Marion Boyd. I don't know what it is now, but at the time it was a elementary school, and I know that some of the schools merged way back when, and they became junior highs, and if they were high schools, and all along those lines. So I'm not sure what Marion Boyd is now, but I know that was a stopping point for the monks who were traveling along with their dog that they brought with their journey as well. So I just wonder your thoughts around the inspiration, because a lot of people are being inspired by these gentlemen that are doing a very simple act. They're just going on a walk of peace by starting in, I think they started maybe in Florida or Georgia, and they're walking all the way up to DC and all along those lines. So it is a long trek, but it's a very simple trek, but they come from a different kind of culture. So I just wondering your thoughts around that and how you are inspired by different things. Because a lot of people are being inspired by what these men are doing by going on this simple walk.
Absolutely. Well, what I think is just really important is to add more kindness and more peace and more love and light into this world. And any way we do it, and the more people that do it, because it seems like the loudest voices are the ones that are creating chaos. But the people in general, we all want just to be happy, to enjoy our lives, find ways to play and communicate and be kind. But being distracted by all the noise stops that. So this simple march, a simple act, however you do it, whomever does it, you're mentioning the monks, this is what the world needs, just creating little ripples to stop all the chaos and just bring people together. Because by nature, we enjoy the communication. Human beings want to be heard and to be noticed and to be liked. I mean, I'm not talking about judgment, because we all need confidence. And that's something that I always talk about, confidence and resilience. And when you are more confident as a child, you were mentioning Indigo. And I think that's so important, that she knows who she is, not cocky, but just being comfortable in her own skin to stand up for herself, do what serves her best, do what serves all of us, ourselves best. Because as I said before, when we have that, we become kinder adults. And that's what I'm working on also with children and teens. And I'm trying to create a curriculum actually to do that, because I speak about this with adults, but it's really important, because I think so many people don't feel good about themselves. And it's really important to foster that sense of self.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, because unfortunately, you can worry about what everybody else is thinking, but when it comes down to it, they're really focused on themselves. So just have your sense of self, be kind to others, and get on with your life and support what's going to serve you and then serve others, so that we just enjoy more and have a sense of purpose and passion and kindness and share that outward. So thank goodness that people are doing this, like you mentioned, the monks, because the more it's done, it combats all that negative noise. And the negative noise is coming from few, but they seem to have the loudest voice. And I
Yeah, they
think
definitely have the loudest voices and everything like that. But just along those same lines, I was watching, it's a show that we re-air on Thursday, but she tapes it on Tuesday on her network and everything. But it's a friend of mine from Indiana, Lisa Hughes, who is a professor believe she's at Indiana University, if not Indiana
Mhm.
State, and everything like that. But she had a producer on. It was actually one of Tupac's producers and everything. And he had
Oh,
an interesting story that he shared that was quite interesting. And he's from New York area and all along those
uh-huh.
lines. Lowe is his name. But I remember that he shared a story, and I think you'll identify with this, William, and you, Deborah, and everything. But he was sharing this story about how he had asked a bunch of kids what they wanted to do when they grew up and all along those lines. And a lot of them had things that he was not expecting. Like I think one of them wanted to be into law enforcement. Somebody else wanted to be a brain surgeon and all along those lines. But it's that whole keeping up with Joneses is the nature of what he was talking about within the story, because they said that when he asked him, because they didn't know who he was when he apparently came into this schoolroom and everything. But as soon as he brought out the platinums, then they all of a sudden all had the best beats in the world and wanted to be the best beat makers, even though their original goals were actually something that was probably more noble and more along the lines of what they their true interests were. But you know, as soon as they saw that he was a beat maker and all along those lines and had this tremendous success, not just with Tupac but with Nas and others, then all of a sudden these folks that had originally wanted to be like the best surgeon, maybe like a brain surgeon, then they wanted to show their beats and all along those lines. So I'm sure you dealt with that even in some of your own tutoring, William. So I just wanted your take on that, because that's something that caught me off guard a little bit when Lisa told that story, or when he told that story on Lisa's show, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think about what Deborah said about us all wanting to be sort of liked, or like wanting to have a favorable response directed towards us, right? Like, so I can see I feel like we become more like each other when we're around each other, right? So even if I think with students, what I might experience is that I encounter some very talented students that are not attempting to be professional artists, but their creativity is out on display when we have class together, and it might be one of the few opportunities that they have to share that skill with anyone. They might be going on to be an accountant, but in this class they get to show off how well they paint or how well they draw, and they are talking about like having had an interest in a creative direction, but it not necessarily being encouraged or supported. But once you're in the proximity to someone that's like doing it as a profession, it's like it gives you license to say, yeah, I like this too. I'm into this too. So I love the story of those kids being around or being exposed to someone that does it professionally or at a certain level, and we're like, oh, like, yeah, look at me, I'm into this too, or whatever. Even though maybe other folks around them might discourage or might think like that's not the way you want to go if you want to have a secure lifestyle. So I feel like it speaks to the necessity of being in close proximity to people that do the things that you enjoy as well, right? To sort of like support and make it feel like you have a community and not just people that want to like sort of be naysayers about you choosing a certain path. But so I think it'd be a hard way to sort of want to be a visual artist, but constantly be surrounded by people that are going in an opposite direction. And not to say that they'd be going in a negative direction, but if they aren't also as interested in you are in playing creatively and like taking that skill set and like manifesting, seeing your ideas manifest, they might speak to you about the challenges of doing that and it being practical or being useful in the world right now, whatever. They might tell you all the reasons why you should do something else. But if you're in relationship with people that like get it, I think it just propels you that much more to like dig in, you know?
Yeah. What do you say to people, and this is for both you and Deborah, that have that attitude? Because even here on this network, some of the, one in particular, but some of the other people that are part of the leadership have sometimes talked about certain careers not necessarily being easy careers to make it in terms of fiscal success. Because oftentimes we put too much on the fiscal success, and some people will be like, you can't be an artist because artists can't make any money, even though I know that that's not the case, because artists can make money and can survive just being an artist. And sometimes you have to supplement your income, whether that's being an Uber driver or a DoorDash person or a number of other jobs that are out there as well. But what do you say, as one who's always been in the arts and is even now trying to encourage your daughter to still maintain her art career and everything like that, to those that are naysayers about art as a career?
One, I think, place that I was really enlightened on was I taught at Duke for a few semesters, and I'm meeting all these students that were really, some of them better painters than myself. but they were headed to be neurosurgeons, lawyers, professions outside of the arts. And I think what that taught me was that those students clearly had like a sort of lifelong interest and encouragement to pursue this skill set, but they also identified these other interests that they had. And that in those some of those careers, they would also get to sort of use their creative mind in a way that wasn't just about painting and drawing. So I actually lately have been of the mind, do we realize just the amount or the necessity of creativity that's like that needs to be deployed in all the other professions that aren't just squarely thinking about selling and painting or selling your paintings and drawings, all right, or your like kind of thing that exists in the plastic arts. So I think even for me as a person that's sort of decidedly a professional artist and wanting to make a living from that, realizing actually when I've earned income, it hasn't always been about selling a painting. Sometimes I teach for one, but sometimes I might facilitate a workshop or do a presentation where I'm not actually painting or drawing anything. I'm sharing about my life, and that's a paid opportunity. So I think one of the gaps in my education, I think was, or something that I wasn't as like, I didn't pay close enough attention to was the fullness of what it means to be a professional, uh, do creative work professionally,
Right.
right? Like all of what you will, all the skills you would need to develop outside of just being good at your craft. There's a lot of other stuff that I think that you have to be proficient in to actually make it for a career. So for Indigo, if that's the direction she was interested in, I think I would have much more information to talk to her about um, what it means to actually engage with people about your work and the necessity of that. Because I think you can be a really talented maker, but not be very interested in engaging with people. And I think that can put you at a disadvantage.
Right.
So that's why folks have agents or gallerists, right? But if you embrace the part of your career that involves you having to meet collectors, meet other kinds of like folks that will support you, that's a skill in itself to be developed and not be ignored. You can't really get around that because even when it comes to meeting a gallerist or an agent, I think you got to have certain like kind of social skills and interest in social interaction for that to be viable. So I would ask my daughter or any other person that's interested in this direction to be mindful of all the other things that being a creative professional will ask you to develop outside of just your chosen craft.
That makes a lot of sense. And like you said, a lot of artists have to be salespeople, and that's where Deborah was, and everything along those lines. And they have to have those skills of salespeople. I know that sometimes that's one of the things that I lack. I think I'm a good at networking. I have been a good networker all my life, but sometimes I lack the sales skills, and know that that's one of my weaknesses. And all along those lines, even in terms of like going for uh, grants and things along those lines. So definitely a lot of times people need to be checking that. But even to your point, and then I want to hear Deborah's thoughts about sales and the importance of sales, even to artists and everything. But to your point about Duke, one of the most famous Duke people is actually a gentleman that has a medical degree, but he is also more known for his acting and his comedy, that being Ken Jeong and everything like that. Because I remember when Ken Jeong, who was in Hangover, was actually here in this area, and Martin Lawrence and of my good friend Ronnie Warner, who did this film this Christmas, they did an Oktoberfest. I believe it was an Oktoberfest celebration, and they actually blocked off the street between what was the Weeping Radish or French Quarters or a number of other restaurants and Durham High, and they did an outside concert that Martin Lawrence was the headliner at, and that probably was in the early 90s and all along those lines. But I remember he was actually a student at Duke at that time, so he was actually the secondary act. There was a Andrew Dice Clay type, and I think Terry Tuff might have been on that show as well. So there were like four people, two of which have gone on to some sense of notoriety, that being Terry Tuff on the radio circuits here in the area and up in DC, and definitely Ken Jeong, because like I said, Ken didn't even come back to Duke, but I think he actually was practicing as a doctor, but right now he's not practicing his medicine trade. He's pretty much only doing his acting and all along those lines. But he was definitely a person that had that training at Duke as I think he was a pre-med at that time, because I think he got his degree from, might have been UNC, but it was another school that he got his degree at, and all along those lines.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was worried about. I was interested in that transition for you, Deborah, like going from an artist to the work you do now. Like, how did you find that world and then transitioning to where you headed after art?
So, I've always been a people person. I love people. And I had my husband and I, for quite a long time, had a design and licensing business. I actually studied textile design, illustration, and business at Syracuse. And I went on to be a textile designer. I worked for big companies, and then we started our own licensing business. And when I decided it was enough, and I had to figure out what to do. And then I asked one of the merchandise managers at one of the stores that I had a relationship with, and I said, "Would you write me a recommendation?" And he said, the hardest thing to do is to sell yourself. It's going to be a piece of cake. I went into pharmaceutical sales. I did a 300 and biotech pharmaceutical sales. I did a 360-degree turn. But what I will say is this doing, and now I'm doing positive energy, and what I really love to do, a little TV, helping people feel better, get unstuck. What I will say is being able to do and many different things, and we all have a sense of self, and doing them to I don't want to say the best, you're the best in the world, no, but doing the best you can do, because we all have gifts. Your superpower, your art, my creativity, definitely, my people skills, definitely. It's things that we nurture along the way. People think that you need a degree in something to be successful. Maybe you need a degree to become a doctor, a lawyer, but you look at so many, I'm not going to name them, but we all know them, so many successful people in whatever they then had as their career, big career, started off doing something else. I mean, Martha Stewart comes to mind. She was in finance. And look, or Rachel Ray. She didn't even have a college degree. So is that necessarily a big deal? We put so much pressure on people to do and to fit into a box. And that goes back to play. And that goes back to confidence and resilience, and why it's so important for young people. And you're doing that for Indigo, to have a sense of self, because we need to pick a path that makes us, like you said, William, feel good, that we get joy out of it. Because what is the point of living if you're not going to enjoy your life? And that's why play is important. And that's why things that we love to do for our work, so it doesn't feel like work. Somebody said to me today, be careful not to burn yourself out. But I really love everything I do, that I look forward to it, that it isn't a burden. I exhausted myself and burnt myself out in pharma sales because I had to be number one, and I was chasing the dream and checking the boxes. And at what cost? Losing my sunshine, my joy. So I think all of these things that we're talking about is so important for a fulfilled life. You get to the end and say, I feel good about what I did. Not, I have regrets, or I shoulda, coulda, woulda, because you can only do what you can do, but be proud in yourself of what you do and what you've accomplished. And I think then we're all winners.
That makes a lot of sense. And this is for both of you. How do you deal with, because it's a topic that I talk about quite often on this show and on the network in general and everything along those lines, with the imposter syndrome? Because you mentioned, William, earlier about getting stuck in that box and all along those lines. And sometimes people will try to put you in a box, and sometimes they'll even try to box you in, meaning they'll try to put you in a box that isn't necessarily your box, and all along those lines, because they might have you living their visions, because that's something that I've talked about on this net show as well. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about both of those. One, how you got past the imposter syndrome, and secondly, how you get past people trying to, for lack of a better term, dream steal, or trying to get you to live their dreams and not your own dreams, because I know that happens as well.
Did you want William to talk? Because I know I just did a lot of talking. Why don't you take that, William?
Sure. Yeah, I think I'm probably still overcoming some aspects of imposter syndrome. When I think about I just mentioned kind of thinking that I'm giving my students a sort of like applauding them by saying some of them paint better than me, right? So I'm always doing this sort of judgment and like kind of like um, putting myself lower in a hierarchy of who I think makes really good work. And so I'm a whole college professor. I have a career as a professional artist, and I'm quick to sort of say, well, I'm not that good, or I'm not as good as this person. Um, and I might mask it as just sort of giving somebody else their props, but I think I still feel like I'm not as good as I could be. Therefore, it's hard for me to sort of like celebrate myself that way, or to put myself in a certain position or pursue certain opportunities because I don't feel like I'm ready yet. Right. So sometimes I think getting out of that is just whether that's applying to a certain opportunity or approaching a certain like collaborator and breaking that spell of like you're not good enough. But then it's also just looking back at what I've done. I think if I pay attention to the pattern that I've established, the things that I participated in, the work that I've done, I think I have done some strong work.
You
Work.
have.
Thank you.
Have. That I think I have. I've done. It's how we talk to ourselves. I don't mean to interrupt.
No,
but
thank you. Yeah.
I really believe that we need to embrace it in how we actually speak it. Now, please continue.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that affirmation.
I'm older than you. I think I want to lift you guys up.
Thank you. I mean, I really appreciate the encouragement. Affirmation is like, I'm, as you can hear and see, I think I'm still trying to embrace that posture, I guess,
I do.
out of the being an imposter or whatever, and know that I do good work. I do good work. And it's work that I'm excited about.
Yes.
And I think I'm interested in growing. I'm interested in learning more, and all of that can still be true. So I think it's a daily process for me, and continuing to engage as opposed to sort of cutting myself off from opportunities, because I think that's one of the mistakes that folks that have imposter syndrome do, is to not
self-sabotage.
Self-sabotage. Yep, exactly.
2 words, right?
Yep.
That's very much what a lot of people do. Along those same lines and everything, how do you deal with, and you kind of alluded to it earlier when you were talking about the gallerists and the agents out there and everything, but how do you deal with art management? Because there are people out there that are very good at management, but there's also sometimes a give and take between the artist and the management, and sometimes the management may take too much of a of a hold on the art and try to control the art world and everything like that. So I just wondered, how do you deal with that give and take between art management and art? Because even on some of the organizations that I've worked at, whether it was the HATAP, which but even the Arts Council and the Carolina Theater, which I was on their board, there was sometimes a tension between the artists and the art management side. So I was just wondering, how do you deal with that? Sometimes that give and take, and sometimes what can lead to a tenuous kind of relationship.
Yeah. I think you have to fully engage in a relationship where you're asking for someone's support for what you do, and not just relinquish everything to them with the expectation that they're just going to do right by you. I think it's important that if you're coming into some agreement that somebody's like advocating for you, supporting you, whatever they're being asked to do, whatever the relationship or the collaboration is, that you don't just turn it over to them and hope for the best. I think you have to have a full understanding. I had a recent experience that I was not fully educated about what my agreement with an organization was. And it wasn't that they were doing something bad. It's just that it wasn't concrete enough for me, and I didn't pursue more information. And so when I encountered this opportunity to make a sale, I was thrown aback, I guess, with what the expectations were of the gallery. And so it's not to say that they were wrong, but I had not sought out the information that let me know that this is what the expectations were. So I was feeling a little bit like hot about that. I was like, I was making it out to be in my mind that there was like deception involved. And I don't think that it was any willful deception at all. Actually, I think it was just my sort of hands-off approach to it, and that it was just sort of instead of making it about business, I was making it about the kind of like polite encounters that I would have with them that make it seem like everything was cool. And that's the sort of business mind I talk about, that I don't necessarily have where my skills are not developed, which is like I'll encounter a collaboration with somebody and think that, oh, we're or in the past we think that we're just buddies. Of course, this is going to go favorably for both of us without taking into account someone else's agenda, needs, program, just thinking like, oh, we have a good rapport, so this is going to go well. But I think it's important for you to be absolutely clear about what you need and have an understanding about the needs of the party that's advocating for you without even making them out to be the villain or you taking that position or whatever, but to have a clear understanding to see if your goals actually align or if there are places where you diverge and need to sort of check in about, is this actually in my favor? Is this favorable for both of us? Am I being taken advantage of? Do I even know what it means to be taken advantage of if everybody's sort of taking a percentage when they are organizing sales for you and things? So I think it's having a better business sense for sure, and not just sort of taking thing at face value is really important.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. William, just along those lines, and then I got a similar question for Deborah, but why do you think that we have such a hard time with collaboration just in general and everything? And it's not all societies, but definitely in certain societies, it seems harder than others. Because I mentioned the art collective that Willie had put together, but unfortunately that has somewhat fizzled out. Hopefully it can come back at some point or along those same lines. And I can say the same thing about the film collaborative, because there was a collaborative of filmmakers that was out there as well that was part of the Haiti Film Festival. I know Tyra's trying to bring that back, as is a couple of other people that were in that space and all along those lines. But I just wondered, do you think that we do a good enough job of trying to build collaborative senses in the minority communities and all along those lines? But I just wondering your take on that, because I'm thinking about even like there are other ones that have existed and have existed for decades now. I'm thinking about like Pleiades and the Carrick when it was around and everything like that. But I'm just wondering, why do we have a harder time with collaboration?
Yeah, I make a parallel to I make a parallel between like personal relationships and kind of what happens on a larger scale with some of the collective efforts. And I can't speak to the history of some of the folks you mentioned and like where things might have like fallen apart, but I think the parallel that I make is between what happens with our egos and with lack of communication. I think I know as an artist, if I have an opportunity right now that I'm preparing for, that me and my buddy talked about whether or not like we would do something together for the opportunity that was extended to me. I love my friend and I love the work that we've done together in the past. So by all means, I should just pursue it with us both, like having this opportunity. But I was really transparent with him about my ego. Made me feel like, I don't know, this was extended to me. This is my time to shine. And so it was a vulnerable moment for me to sort of say that out loud, but to be honest about that, as opposed to sort of pretending, and basically ended up in a whole other like kind of like set of challenges with some other challenges, instead of just sort of admitting that that's the feeling that was incited in me, was feeling like it was a moment where my shine or the attention might have been like subdued for me if I opened it up to someone else. But my mission and my vision for how I want to be in this community is to collaborate, is to be in community. But I had this feeling that's, when you process this kind of stuff with my wife is a therapist, by the way. You process this stuff with your therapist partner and an actual therapist or folks, I have a lot of like time for internal sort of processing. Is deeper than just being worried about this one opportunity. I think it looks like, do I have everything I need to survive in this world? I'm turning this one opportunity for an exhibition into a conversation about my literal survival, right? And it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be that big, but I think sometimes our innate response is based on some internal, some layers of experiences of hurt, of pain that you're trying to sort of like, that you're responding to, even when you don't know you're responding to it. So, and I think, and the other part of the ego is a part of a communication, like are our goals aligned? So if we're in a collective, am I after the same thing that you're after in this like collective? And again, where do we tend to diverge? Like where are we aligned, and where are we like we have kind of different visions for what we want is manifested, Who else is involved in that? Who gets what a level of attention? Is it always evenly distributed? So I think those are some of the things that occur to me around like the how these things sometimes like fall apart is ego, inflation, as well as a lack of communication.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, Deborah, along those same lines and everything, you mentioned that you had done some work in the apparel industry, and I know that
Home
Andre
furnishings
Leon
and
Talley
gifts.
was from here and all along those lines and everything like that. So, and he was a dermite before he passed away and was definitely connected with Vogue and all along those lines. But I was just wondering, because a lot of times we have a quilt circle at the Hayti Center, and they are very much in tune with each other and work together on a regular basis. They've even got, I don't think they'll be back at the center till I think it's April or May, because they're getting ready to go to some other venues and do some work in those venues and all along those lines. But those ladies who are of various ages, but most of them are at least, I say the majority are over 60 or at least over 50 and all along those lines. But they do this great work with their quilts, and the quilts tell these tremendous stories and everything like that. So I just wanted your thoughts around the apparel industry, because the apparel and fashion industry in a lot of ways is very collaborative.
Mm.
So I was not in, my parents were fashion designers, interestingly enough, but I chose to go into the home furnishings and gifts area. I like that more than the clothing. I love clothing, but it's interesting that you said that, because I think in my experience with sales, also with artists, that ego, what you talked about, but not even a positive sense of ego. People they don't feel necessarily, they might be really talented, but they don't necessarily feel like they're so, they're so wonderful, even though they maybe shine and have a lot of acclaim. Still, their fear, that imposter syndrome creeps up. And with that comes the fact that they don't want anyone else to show them up. And it's interesting, because I was a number one sales rep. I worked really hard. That's how I got that year over year. And there's a lot of jealousy with people. I never, like you, I could tell you're very humble, William, and you too, Mark. We want to be kind to everyone, but what happens with other people is that jealousy. See, I'm not jealous. I want to help other people, like you said, William, but I also believe that we need to serve ourselves and be honest to ourselves. What you were trying to do, I mean, you'll do what you think is best, but it was your opportunity to shine. And I think with friendship, it was very nice that your friend invited himself, and maybe you will do it as a group, but also good friends try to lift each other up. That's what I try to do for my friends. I never want to steal their sunshine. And it's really being honest. What you mentioned about communication, that's really key. And I found that you talk about collaboration, and corporations want you to collaborate. It's a big thing, but it's our human nature to worry about, well, will somebody show me up? Will they look better? And it's how you deal with these things. So although we talk about collaboration with artists in sales and corporations, it's a very hard thing for humans to reckon with, because of that not feeling so secure in yourself. And that's why teaching this at a young age, to feel more secure in yourself, but to also stand up for yourself, not to let other people steal your thunder or make you feel badly. We have to embrace who we are and feel good ourselves without needing other people to pat us on the back. And then I think maybe there would be more collaboration, because as I saw collaboration, people play at it, but I don't really see it always panning out. But I will tell you this, and then I will be quiet. Now in my author groups, people are a little older. people are doing different things. Like I have a friend, Eileen. We actually really collaborate and help each other. I share contacts with her, everything. Would I do that with everyone? No. You know who you're doing it with. It's not a tit for tat. I do this for you, you do that. But it's knowing that somebody really cares about you, has your back. And when you trust somebody, intuitively trust them, like you with your wife, like me with my husband, then it's easier to collaborate because you trust the person, you know they have your back. I think in these big corporations or artists or whatever, you don't know 100% who to trust. Everybody's out for themselves. You said it, William, your own people's agendas. And that's where the collaboration really happens, is when you really trust the person. And that's, I think, the key to collaboration, not trying to show someone up, but really having their back.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Deborah, and that's even where I was going, because I've known some people that have tried to get me to collaborate, but they wanted to be like the alpha dog in the collaboration and all along those lines. And then to me, that's not a true collaboration. That's more of a corporation with them as the head and all along those lines, even though they were trying to sell it as a collaboration. And I've had that happen at least twice and everything, and probably even more than that. But I know of at least 2 incidents where the person was trying to be the alpha dog. As you know, because you mentioned being from Wisconsin, I forgot about that, except for when we talked a couple of weeks ago and everything like that, William, and everything like that. But that's one of the things that I admire about, not just because he's the coach of my alma mater, but about Shaka Smart and everything like that, because Shaka Smart talks about creating a culture. And it actually came out, even though they've taken their lumps, they're having a losing season. But last night, they beat the number 3 team and beat them handily and everything, because he was creating this culture of, we might take our lumps, we might lose a bunch of games because they're at the bottom of the division right now, but it's a matter of creating a culture of learning, because he wants these men to be better men as they go into the world, whether they go into sports, because we know that the percentage of people that make it as a successful athlete is ridiculously low and everything like that. So he's trying to build a culture of them understanding winning ways, even if they're not winning at this particular moment and everything like that. So that's something that he talks about, is creating a culture, and it's a culture of winning even when you're losing and everything like that. So I was wondering your take on that, because that is something that even the commentators, Grant Hill, were talking about, him creating that culture on the game yesterday and everything like that, because he was one of those people that was not wanting to go the NIL route and the transfer portal route, which so many athletes are doing and so many programs are doing, because they have a way of trying to have them come in as freshmen, and hopefully many of them and most of them will stay until and through their senior year. So they are graduating with degrees that are having transferable skills that they can take into the corporate world or the athletic world. Some of them may become coaches. Some of them may become successful people in their business ventures and all along those lines. But that is something that he is trying to build. And I think he did that at VCU. I think he did that at Texas. I think he's done that at every university that he has coached at. It's just that he's bringing it to Marquette right now and everything like that. So I just wanted your thoughts, both of you, but I'll start with you, William, about building a culture of winning.
Yeah, I hear it as like the importance of taking in the lessons, regardless of whether you fail or succeed, not letting that be the measure of what do you gain from the experience before the reward comes or before the failure comes. And I think that's important. Indigo and Leticia just stepped in. So just talking about the lessons. You come on over. So I'm with Mr. Mark and Miss Deborah talking about.
Sweetie, are you You're gorgeous? Look at you. You're so sweet. Your dad adores you, but you know that, right?
Yeah.
And I hear you're very talented.
That's true.
I am.
Good. I like to hear that. Yes, I am. You tell your dad to say, yes, I am.
Yes, you are. That's true.
So what have you drawn this today, or did you draw anything today, Indigo?
Did you draw anything at school, or what did you create anything at school?
Nope.
Not today.
Not today.
Did you play?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what we were talking about when we first started having a conversation about the importance of playing.
What did you play today? What games did you play?
You have to think about it. Which games? But
How about dodgeball? Do you do dodgeball? I used to love dodgeball.
did you dodgeball at your school?
No dodgeball.
Probably a little bit too
How
little.
about tag? Do you play tag?
Oh, you and I play tag. I wonder, you might not have played today, but like where you run and you catch the person who's it. I remember playing that with you and your friends.
And duck, duck, goose.
Oh, I love Duck Duck Goose. I wish we could play now. Duck Duck Goose. And we run around.
Then the person that's doing the duck, duck, goose, duck, goose. Then you try to taste them and you tag them, and if you don't tag them, you're still the duck, duck, goose person. If you do tag them are the duck, duck, goose person.
You explained that so well.
You did that very well.
Very articulate, my sweetie.
And how old are you again?
4.
4?
Wow.
Yeah, 4.
High five, you kiddo, you.
4.
I love children.
Children are amazing.
Thanks for letting Indigo get in on the conversation. Yeah,
No
I mean, I think in terms of that culture of winning, I think realizing there's a lot of winning in the information that you gain from just participating in a certain process, right? And not chalking it up to like, if by the end of this thing I didn't sell a painting, do all, I guess, the things that are supposed to be the reward at the end. If you miss out on what you actually gain from engaging in the process, then I think then you aren't learning from it. You aren't appreciating that. You aren't doing that kind of culture of winning that I think the coach you described is cultivating amongst his guys.
Right.
Was whether you make it to the league or make it to the championship, you still did a whole lot of work, had a whole lot of experiences that are going to inform the rest of your life.
Yeah, no doubt about that. What's your take on that, Deborah, and everything? Because like I said, he's just one of several coaches that I know have had that mindset, even some of the ones from here. I think Coach K has a similar mindset, quite a few of his Duke players, and even Hubert Davis now at UNC, and even when Dean Smith was there, quite a few of the players did make it to the pros, but quite a few of them did not make it, but they are successful in the business world or in the TV world because of some of the skills that they learned. And the same with the gentleman from Syracuse, because I know the Syracuse coach had a similar mindset and all along those lines. But I just wanted your take on this coach's mindset, because oftentimes we forget that coaches are sometimes people's first mentors.
It's true. And I think instilling confidence in people helps them step up, helps them. If you feel somebody, well, I'm back to this, if you feel somebody trusts you, if they have your back, if you're not worried that this is going to go wrong and that is going to go wrong, and you just step up and do your very best. And according to the 4 agreements, if you ever read that, our best changes. And we have to very much think about giving ourselves grace, because I used to get caught up in not the 10 good things, and I'm sure William and Mark, you can relate to this, not the 10 good things I did in a day, but the 1 or 2 things that didn't meet my expectations. Right. And what would I focus on? And it brought me down, and the negativity. So now I flip the script. I have an accomplishment jar. I do the best I can every day within a framework of giving myself grace. Some days I'm more productive, like anybody. Some days you feel happier, some days you don't. That's why I wrote a book, 6 Steps to Fewer Days That Suck. Not no days that suck, fewer days, because we have to give ourselves grace, and nothing is ever perfect. And I think the best coaches try to get the best out of you, yes, and push you, but they also have your well-being in mind. I think that's very, very important, to really balance, have boundaries, and put your well-being first, because when you feel good, you do better. So that is my take on pushing people to their limits, because sometimes that's self-defeating, or it doesn't really help them reach their limits. They just like give up or don't feel as good. You have to bolster their confidence and teach them a sense of resilience that not everything in life is going to work out. You're not going to be the best at every little thing. You do your best, and whatever is meant for you, and I really do believe this, whatever is meant for you will happen. Maybe being in the pros is not meant for you, but maybe something better will come along. Not punishing yourself personally for not reaching there, but just knowing you did your best. And there's so many doors that could be open to us. We just have to be able to walk through them. And that is where confidence is so important. And that's what I hope that more coaches do, is make people feel good and build their confidence, and they learn resilience also.
Yeah, because their star guard is, I think he's listed at 6 feet, but most of the TV anchors are thinking he's closer to 5'11" or 5'10". And even one of the plays that he had 2 plays, and he actually praised because they asked him which one he liked better, because he had 2 plays that were highlight films. One was him assisting one of his fellow athletes with a slam, but he was the assist man on that one. The other one was a windmill dunk that he did at the end of the game, but he actually preferred the assist over the windmill dunk, even though the windmill dunk he hadn't pulled out since he's a freshman. So what are freshmen, like about 18 or 19? So he hadn't pulled that out since like the 9th grade. So it's been like 5 or 6 years since he had pulled that windmill dunk out. And I'm going like, well, if you were in the 9th grade, that means you were probably about 5'2" when you did that windmill dunk. So I was already amazed that he was able to do the windmill dunk at that height, much less the height that he's at now. But yeah, he's a Monty Tao type person. So the chances of and I'm not saying he can't, because there have been small people that have made it, but he's got the height disadvantage going as well and everything, because there are not many undersized guards, particularly under 6 feet and everything like that. But I think that one thing that Coach Smart is trying to encourage him to do is just become the best person that he can become and become the best teammate he can be. And that's definitely something that he encourages, is them working as a team unit and everything like that. And that's what I meant when I said they've gone through some hard times, but then they just had this major win. And who knows, maybe that's a building block where they can go from now. I mean, they've got a long way to go to catch the top team. So I don't think that that'll happen, but no telling what can happen in the playoffs when they get to Madison Square Garden, which is where the biggest championships are. But I think he's trying to have this notion of creating building blocks. And I think that's what he does when they start as freshmen, and he's hoping that they'll stay all the way to their senior year. So those are building blocks that they can carry into the professional world, no matter what the professional world is, to your point, Deborah, and everything like that. So that's something that I too wish more coaches would worry about that and less about the financial situation and all along those lines. But yeah, that's what I think he's trying to build, is that sense of building blocks. So what was the building blocks for you, William, and for you, Deborah? What did you feel were your building blocks, and what got you that sense of encouragement? Because I know I heard you, William, where you said you still face that, and I know I still face that. There have been opportunities that I've had that I have not gone for because I talked myself out of them, and that's in relationships and in job situations. And by the time I talked myself into it, the opportunities had left, whether that was in a relationship with a young lady or whether that was in a professional opportunity and everything like that. Because we sometimes can wallow in self-pity, to your point, Deborah, and everything like that. So I just wondered, how do you get out of that wallowing out of self-pity?
Well, I want William to answer that first, but I just want to say something which I think is really interesting. How in sports now, they're actually bringing in, well, therapy, so to speak, in terms of mindset,
Right.
is also having that mindset. And I talk about that too, is mindset shifts and thinking more positively, and how you do this, because that also can reflect on your performance, right? If you believe you can do it, like Henry Ford's quote, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. So a lot of it is, and I say that to you, William, because we're talking about this, is how you speak to yourself and then how you actually say it outward. I really try very hard now not to say things negatively, but to say things with a positive spin, because forgetting what other people think of me. It's more that what you think of yourself is how you show up. And I wanted to say that because I think mindset really will save the day. So now, speaking of, I want you to talk about what Mark just asked. I wanted to say that because I think it's so important.
I love what you're adding to this. I mean, both like mindset and then a reminder to yourself to like, what is it that you have internalized about your ability to do the thing that you want to do, whether you can or you can't. You're right. I love that. And so these, like, thinking about the building blocks for me have been leaning into the things that I was already good at, but as I was met with things that I wasn't necessarily proficient at. Say, no one that has known me from an early age would say I was a very like outspoken person. And there have been like several opportunities that have been really critical to my career where public speaking is like a feature of that. I had an opportunity to do a TEDx Duke talk, right? So that's all just me on stage doing a 15-minute presentation. All right. Thank you. So like that is not my thank you.
Who could do it? That's amazing.
Right. And so I've gotten a lot of like great compliments on that. And just for myself, like realizing that the mantra that I often hear my wife remind our daughter of is you can do hard things. Like I can do hard things. And that's what the story about the kid at Marquette made me think about was you can be 5'11" or shorter and do some amazing things on the court. It's been proven you can do that and out and off the court, right? So those guys going on in their careers will be able to be reminded of what they were able to accomplish on the basketball court and know that outside of that arena, they can do hard things. And I think that's true for me as well, where there's opportunities that don't fit squarely into just making a painting or drawing that I think I've succeeded at, and being willing to embrace those opportunities instead of running away from them. So I think the building blocks have to be not only the stuff that you're skilled at, that you're proficient in, but also taking opportunities to grow your skills in areas that you were nervous about or you're fearful like it won't work out, and being willing to put the time in to get good at it. And maybe you won't be it would be impossible, I think, for a thing that you hadn't ever done for you to be the best at it at the start of it, but you have to start somewhere, right? To get better at it, to be proficient with it. So nowadays I feel pretty confident about standing in front of an audience, especially if it's talking about something that I feel passionate about, right? So it's not even so much like a stage fright thing for me. It's like, am I in a position to share with an audience things that I think are valuable, and realizing that this lifetime spent with being identified as the art kid, one of the art kids drawing and painting, I think I also have this skill set of an interest in communication. Like I think that's been developed over time, and it's not something that I think I've been celebrated for necessarily, or people will like identify, or I don't know. I can't speak to how other people see me, but for myself, I feel like it's something I'm gaining more confidence in, and I think it's part of like an important feature of my life, but also of my career. And if I ignored that or stayed fearful of it, it wouldn't be developed to the extent that it is now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and everything. How did you come up with the TEDx talk, and what was the TEDx talk on? Because you mentioned that, and I've known a couple of other people, including some on this network like Maxine Pearl Phillips and I think Sharon Campbell, that have done TEDx talks. But how did you come about this TEDx talk?
What was the subject? Where is yours, Deborah?
It's not. I actually have it now. I have to apply. Okay. I have so many other things, but I want you to answer Mark's question because I'm interested too. Like, what did you speak on?
Yeah, the conference theme was liminality. So I had to figure out how I was going to address this concept.
What?
Of the liminality. So thinking about liminal spaces. So it's a concept that I don't know that I had ever applied, a term that I had never applied to the work that I did, but I had to sort of figure out in what way do I relate to this concept of the liminal or the in-between, right? And so once I started to do the research about how I could fit my work into this theme, or just look at my practice and think about where does liminal fit in, I thought about these paintings that I've been making of Black men with their faces painted half blue. And that's all about, the in between, of being in this space between how you identify and are identified, and stereotypes that come with that, but also what you feel like internally, what your internal sort of identity is, or your emotions that are hidden, like come with, right? So there's a self that I present to you all, that we present to each other, and then there's an internal dialogue, right? And where do those things, again, like where do they meet and where do they diverge? And so though the paintings I have been making for a few years before the talk became basically the focal point of the conversation, and thinking about not only in my paintings, but for Black men, Black people, and humans in general, that we exist in a state of liminality because of this sort of distinction between who we present on the outside and who we are on the inside. That puts us in this, sometimes for some of us more than others, in this kind of state of either confusion or where there's a kind of clash between those experiences.
You mentioned your wife being a therapist, and as you were saying that, William, the first thing that came to my mind is there's a lot of conversation in therapy, and I've got friends that are therapists as well, some in New York, some even around this area and everything, where they talk about the representative, and a lot of us have various representatives, and all along those lines, and we have different masks that we wear, and that's for all people and everything like that. So the whole notion of representatives and masks, and how we present the different images and all along those lines. I mean, there's this whole conversation that goes on, and that can get very political, and we don't have enough time to deal with it on this particular show, but we can maybe bring it on another show as well, of the whole notion of code switching, where people will act one way when they're among their homies and act another way when they've got to go to the corporate world and everything like that. And that exists both within the women population and the Black male population and various other populations. I think Indians sometimes can code switch as well. Indians from India.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, I love the analogy of the mask there. That was certainly an aspect of how that series evolved, was thinking about going from a literal mask to what it looks like to sort of socially present with that representative, as opposed to whatever you feel like your authentic self is.
Right.
And when you have to sort of switch over to whichever one you decide to present on any given day.
Yeah, because part of the problem that exists, and I know that Deborah can speak to this from a sales point of view, is that sometimes we get so caught up in the representative that we don't even know the authentic ourselves and everything along those lines. So there are a lot of people that are so much caught up in their various representatives that they get lost in terms of what their true identity is and everything like that. So that's a pitfall that can exist if you're playing too many roles, too many people.
Right. And I mean, the vulnerability of that, I think of how much of your authentic self has opportunity to, do you take advantage of the opportunity to share that? When is it safe? When is it not safe? When do you assume it's not safe? I think all of those questions like come to mind for me with what you're describing, and with human existence in general, is like how safe do I feel to present as the person that I feel like I am, or when do I feel like I have to subdue that one way or another and present as something else that feels safe to the audience I'm engaging with. Yeah.
And Deborah, I'm sure you dealt with that because you were in sales and different sales, but I know that for a fact the pharmaceutical sales industry is very much oftentimes occupied by white male elites and all along those lines. So as a woman in that field, I'm sure that you had to face those fears sometimes.
It was interesting because I've been the type of person, I mean, yes, we all have self-doubt. It's human nature. But I also always dance to my own drummer, so to speak. Even in our team, because we were in a team, but I had my own territory. I just sort of did my own thing. They said, the manager said, why don't you chat with everyone more? It's like, how can I do that? I need to do my job. I just spoke out. I figured that, and I said this before when we were talking, what's meant for me will happen.
Yeah.
And I remember they were in a situation, I won't say if it's pharma or anything. They were trying to get rid of somebody. And I actually stood up and defended the person. Now, the person at top said to me, maybe you shouldn't have done it. in this situation, but I admire what you did. I have a moral compass. I speak my mind. I temper it. I mean, I do, but if I feel so strongly about something, and maybe to a fault, I still, if I feel strongly about something, I mean, I'm not going to do something to put myself in danger, but I really feel that I want to step up for people that I feel trust me, that have this person had done a solid for me, really something so good. So how could I throw this person under the bus? But other people who she also did solids for threw her under the bus. And I found it just reprehensible. It just bothered me to my core. And I actually said something to one of the people who did that. And I think she really disliked me for it, because she had to know, if you look yourself in the mirror, and this is up to anybody, and I don't say do something that's dangerous or going to put you in danger. We have to protect ourselves and not put ourselves at risk. But my grandfather did something back in World War II. Funny enough, he manufactured chemicals, and he was paid an amount of money. They put an extra zero on it, and he didn't deserve it, and he returned it. And that's how I have always lived my life, is doing what I feel is the right thing, not to a fault, but honestly, I think it's really important to have a moral compass, to trust yourself to trust yourself. And yes, not put yourself at risk, at danger, but also to be able to stand up for yourself, to be able to say, well, this is what I think. And why shouldn't we be able to do that? I don't get involved in politics and that kind of thing, but when it comes to me and my moral compass and doing the right thing for other people and really doing the right thing, I'm really proud of myself. Even if I could have possibly lost my job, which wouldn't have been good, I just had to do that for this person who had done something so nice for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad you put that, because you got to have that moral compass, and too often we don't pay attention to our moral compasses, and all along those lines we just kind of like let it slide, thinking that whatever is the going on, it's kind of like that get along to be along kind of attitude and everything like that. So we got to definitely maintain that moral compass and understand where we are in terms of our individuality and all along those lines. But I think too often we don't do that enough and everything like that.
And what I just want to say this because it involves children. I go back to the confidence and the resilience and belief in self, because be able to say no to people who are going to, teens, drugs, take you on a slippery slope. And I think, and my parents must have really embedded this moral compass, this confidence in myself in order to dance to my own drummer, to be kind to other people. I've always been really kind, and I try to include people. But I think, and I can see you're doing this with Indigo, William, and because I can see how she presents herself. And the thing is, when she gets to be a tween, is that she continues on this path. And I guess with your wife being a therapist, she will, because that when we don't feel so secure in ourselves in these teenage years are the time when we can go down a path that could be destructive. And building confidence in young people is one way to sort of help them, guide them in order to stand up for themselves and say, no, I am not going to do drugs. It's not going to benefit me. But it's very hard sometimes when everybody else is doing it. And you said that, Mark. It's like we have to. And this is my ripple and what I'm working towards doing, even though my book is more for adults. A lot of parents and the reviews I read are giving it to their tweens and teens because it does help you in very simple ways, because it's just double pages of all the things that humans struggle with. It's just how you can be true to yourself, how you can best serve yourself, because then you're better for other people and you can get along better in this world and just have a life that just feels better. No?
That makes a lot of sense. Hey, William, I know your wife is a therapist and everything like that, and sometimes we as people, just people in general, are afraid of therapy. So I was just wondering, how important has therapy been in your own life and everything? Having a wife that's a therapist, but also knowing that that is something that various societies are afraid to go to therapy, even though it is something that we all should do at some point or another.
Oh man, that's a really timely question too, because we've been having some really critical like conversations, and I had a therapist that I took a break from, and been encouraged to like consider a new therapist. But I think before I even like committed to therapy in the first place, years ago, like probably like 20 plus years ago, when I was in college, I went to a therapist about like a challenge I was experiencing, and I felt embarrassed about it. Even when I went and took advantage of that opportunity, I felt embarrassed that I had shared these things with this man that I didn't know. So I didn't know back then how you could shop around for a therapist, right? Like you could like be selective about who you chose, right? And now there's all these tools to go and find and like a decent match. You could even go to a therapist and it doesn't work out with that person and move on to someone else. And that's kind of like the I want to say too that I don't know if this would ever find my therapist, but I had a fine experience with him. Just, but I think in terms of continuing to like process my life stuff, there is a certain, I guess every therapist has a particular like style or ideology or some, approach, I should say approach. And you want to find the approach that works for you. But I in terms of like the stigma around it for, I guess maybe then like Black culture or other like cultures where there's a stigma around going to see a therapist, I guess I get where that comes from, but I don't know that I'm necessarily coming from the same place, except that when I actually had the experience initially, it did feel odd to share these personal things about my life with a person, but it felt necessary because I didn't know where else to go, who else to confide in. So now I'm realizing like it's not even a question for me, the value of it, but I think it becomes more of a question: do you have the right therapist? Not a question of if you should do therapy, but more, are you matched with the right person to do the work that you need to do to process some critical stuff in your life, critical
that makes a lot,
happenings.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And therapy can definitely impact a lot of people, because I know that at one point I went through Goodwill and was doing some Goodwill job training and other kind of things through Goodwill. But part of that was going to a therapist. And this was probably 15, 20 years ago and all along those lines. And that's when they discovered the dysgraphia that I had all through college, including Marquette and high school and everything like that. So I have this form of dyslexia, which means me and left and right are not the best friends. So which is why I don't drive and get around by mass transit and everything like that. But it wasn't discovered until I went to the therapy sessions. And then they were like, oh, he's got dysgraphia. But I was well into my adult years. I think I was in my late 20s or early 30s when that happened and everything. I'm now in my 60s. So this was sometime back that was happened, but it was after I had gone through all of my college. I only made it to the bachelor's degree. Not saying that I won't get a master's or a PhD at some point, but I only made it to the bachelor's. But it was throughout all of school and college, and it was never diagnosed, even though I knew I had a sorry handwriting and knew that there were other things that were signs of it and all along those lines. But I didn't realize it until I went to the therapist through the Goodwill program.
Whoa.
Yeah, so sometimes you don't know these things until you go through the therapy and all along those lines. So that's where I was going with that. Getting to wind down, because we got to get to another show shortly and all along those lines. But before we wind down, I was going to ask you, William, is there a particular artist that you would, or a particular subject that you would love to paint that you haven't painted, or a particular artist that you would like to collaborate with that is your dream collaboration, whether it's a national or a local, or whether it's a regional one, or whether it's a subject? Maybe you wanted to paint Barack Obama or something along those lines. So is there a particular subject that you have always wanted to paint?
I had answered this way for some interview that I did at one point, and I mentioned Donald Glover. not as a subject of a painting, but as someone to like have a conversation with. Like I've been really impressed with the work he's done over the years, and the amazing skill set that he has across disciplines, you know, from comedy to music to drama. Like he's just versatile. I think in the way that we praise some of the artists that we see out there being versatile, he's like, I think one of the top tier artists for being able to do that. And so I don't sing, I don't dance well. So my discipline is sort of squarely fixed in visual art, but I feel I am interested in film and filmmaking. So I think talking to someone like that, I don't know what a collaboration would even look like, but I think just being able to like learn more, be in a more intimate setting with someone of that, of like maybe specifically him. And, you know, I think the funny thing about identifying Donald Glover, though, is I think about when we look at the credits for movies. And we see all of these people who have collaborated on a project to make this amazing thing, is that it's easy for me to identify him because he's like the name on the marquee, right? Like he's the director or he's the artist or whatever. But I think we don't always sort of look into all the collaborators. I think there's a name, I won't say the right name, but his collaborator on the series Atlanta, and the name that kept popping up as the director, I think is probably, maybe I'm actually interested in meeting that person or whoever the cinematographer were on these episodes. But he's like the sort of representative of all the work that I've seen him do without me considering the fullness of who he's collaborated with to have all these great projects come across the way that they do. So that's something that comes to mind. But yeah, Donald Glover is way up on my list.
That makes sense. What about you, Deborah? Is there somebody that you haven't met that you'd like to meet that's on your wish list?
You know, there's so many people. And it's funny because in my book, 6 Steps to Fewer Days That Suck, in my book, I mention a lot of different people that you know, people that you don't. And for each of them, there's things that they've overcome that really spoke to me, because I know how difficult life is. And I understand imposter syndrome and feeling insecure and all that. And there's so many, quite a few I mentioned in my book. I mean, even like Oprah, but because how she speaks and what she says, I relate to. But so many different people. I actually met one yesterday. His name, I don't even know if you know him. So there's lots of people, and slowly through my life, I believe, meet the people that are meant for me to meet. And I wish I could give you one specific person, but there's just so many that I respect and that I really feel stepped up, got out of the comfort zone, and achieved what was in their heart. Whether they were kind or not, you know, that's not all of them were, but still just having the guts to go through. But yesterday, so I wrote about this man that I read about years ago. His name is Jean-Paul Laurent. He comes from Haiti, and he started a nonprofit called Unspoken Smiles. So what he does is he helps youth in underserved communities do well with oral health. Right now he's doing things in Costa Rica, and he said one of the schools had 100% no cavities. He's trying to do something in this New York City area. He had a meeting, and that's why he was in Manhattan. But I actually got to meet him, and I don't think he'd mind me doing this. And I took a picture with him. We just met for a brief time, but that's me and Jean-Paul Laurent. I gave him my book. I gave him an extra one he could share, and I inscribed it to him because I love people that step up and do good and have a moral compass. I mean, in their own way. He studied dental hygiene, and he told me his story at NYU. He then got his, I think, international master's in international business, something like that. But then he married it together because he really wanted to help people. And that's what speaks to me. And those are I want to meet as many people that do that. I'm not jealous. I feel so good about people that are doing something that fills them up, that gets them up, even though it's hard. I said, boy, it's a nonprofit's a lot of work. He says, it's been a lot of work. But so it's just something simple like that. I'm slowly meeting these people that I respect. It's not just one person. It's just like, I just want to tell you, I'm really impressed with you. And that just made me feel really good to be able to do that. And I read it's just a really short, what I wrote about him in my book. I mention a lot of people, and then I'll be quiet. So I'm going to start with it's really short. A good deed from the heart can help release toxic emotions and make way for joy to enter. Make it social, invite others to join, choose safely, and resist adding extra pressure. Add your special touch. Here's some inspiration. Jean-Paul Lauren founded Unspoken Smiles, a nonprofit dedicated to promoting better oral health for at-risk children worldwide. And then I go into the science. I'm going to just read one more paragraph. Studies indicate that smiling makes us more attractive and likable. Although it may seem counterintuitive, practicing altruism during challenging times, not just when life is going your way, can bring self-satisfaction and yield meaningful rewards. And it's just things like that, is linking it to doing good in this world and being kind to others. And those are the people that I really want to collaborate with. I would like to keep in touch. Mark, I am in touch with you, but William, I would like to keep in touch with you because I just feel a sense of alignment with the both of you.
I agree.
Yeah.
And that positive energy, I only want to be around people that are positive, and I make it my mission to do that. I mean, I feel for people that are struggling. I really do, and are negative, but I need to go forward and put good into the world. So I need to remain positive. I will help people, but I can't let them drag me down. And I don't mean it to be mean. I just we need to protect our energy. And that's one of my simple New Year's goals, is to protect my energy and meet people, be with people that want to lift other people up, like the two of you.
Yeah, no doubt. I appreciate it and everything like that. As we get ready to wind down, as I was saying, I did see an interview with Mark Cuban. Would love to meet Mark Cuban because apparently he went through some hard times. I know he's been supporting the Indiana team that just went and had a perfect season in football and all along those lines. But he does seem like he even had some hard times where he had to live on the porch of like some of his roommates and or on the floor of some of his roommates and all along those lines. So people know him as this rich man, but he had some hard times even when he was in college and all along those lines. And I first heard about that, I think, on a 60 Minutes piece or something like that. So he's definitely had some hard times, and he talks about that in some of his books. I would love to have the pleasure of meeting and maybe even interviewing him at some point or another. One of the things I get everybody to do at the end is to give a message of positivity. We've been doing this show and everything like that, but I'll start with you, William, and then end with you, Deborah, and everything like that. And we got about 5 minutes to go, or about 5 or 6 minutes. But if you can tell folks how they can reach you that have been watching here on Pod TV, and any message of positivity that you would like to share with the global community, because Pod TV is a global network.
So, yeah.
William.
Oh, thank you, Mark. So I have my website there, williampaulthomas.com, and folks can use a contact card there, but I also am on other social media sites. Mainly Instagram is where I share a lot of my creative work.
Where are you? I tried to look. Where are you? What's your handle? I looked while we were talking.
Yeah, it is Will Art, the number 4 food. Will Art 4 food.
Wait, do it again. WILL.
Yep, WILL 4, the number 4.
Okay.
Oh wait, I'm spelling. I'm not spelling the way what I'm saying. WILLART number 4.
Will Art.
OOD. Yeah, Will Art for food. Excuse me.
Wait. I just dropped my pen. Will, what is it? Will 4? Will Art? What is it?
I had a glitch in my brain when I was spelling it out. It's Will Art. So WILL.
Will Art.
Yeah, Will Art.
Wait. I know.
And I should put it in. Can I adjust? I don't know if I can adjust it in real time, but
put it in the chat.
Can I put it in the chat?
Yeah, and you say Will Art for food, right? Like food, like you're eating.
Wait, Will Art 4?
Yes.
The number 4.
Food. I
The
see
number-
it. I see it. I see it. Will Art for Food. Okay, I'm following you right now. It's
perfect.
it's right here, right?
That's me. Yep.
Okay, I'm following you. I'm daily.decision, so just you'll follow me back. We keep in touch. What
Absolutely.
are you on Instagram, Mark Lee?
I am. It's under Lee Entertainment 62.
Wait, hold it. I'm following Lee.
Entertainment
Everybody could do this with me. Entertainment
62.
Wait. Lee Entertainment.
62. 62. The number 60, right?
Entertainment 62. Oh no. Oh yes, this right. Well,
Yep, that's it. Yep.
okay, I'm gonna turn. Okay, here you are, because it looks like you.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, I'm following you too. Okay, daily.decisions is me. Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, thank you for making sure that you have
Connect.
it and we can continue to connect.
I love connection. This is the best. Okay, I'm sorry. Go on, Will.
Yeah, I guess this whole conversation feels very inspirational to me, and I think I would encourage people to follow up on your curiosities and invitations without fear. I think when you mentioned this opportunity to me, Mark, again, it had to be a few years since you first talked to me about it. I was probably so nervous about what I couldn't possibly, what do I have to share? Or you probably talking to all kind of famous people up there. I told myself all of those things before I even attempted to learn more about it. And then last we spoke, I'm like, no, let me go for it. So I really appreciate the opportunity. And I will just remind other people to don't be driven by your fears. Follow your curiosities and see what's out there for you. And thank you for having me, Mark.
Hey, no problem. Deborah, if you could, and I need to be succinct because I got to get to sharing the show and everything along those lines. But if you can tell people how they can reach you and also your message of positivity, and then I'll go out with a couple of these commercials, including one about a gospel game show.
Okay, well, my book is 6 Steps to Fewer Days That Suck, and you can buy it on Amazon. My website is The Daily Decisions, because everything is about your decisions you make. The Daily Decisions, decisions.com. I have worksheets that you can, when you subscribe to my Positive Energy Club, you get my newsletter and worksheets. And there's buttons to connect with me. I get emails all the time. And I just want to tell everybody, yes, I want to piggyback on what William said about opportunities. Go for it. Any opportunity. People invite me. If I'm speaking to one person, I'm there. But I think what I like to do is share my morning routine. I smile at myself because I try to stop the cortisol spike. Well, you calm it. You can't stop it, but you calm it. It's naturally occurring, but you calm it. So you start the day on a more positive, calm note, give myself a hug. I smile at myself and I say something positive that I take throughout the day. And I try to always be positive, flip the script, and just be true to myself and cut out all the noise, because everybody will say what they say. It's their agenda. Follow yours, but be kind, and kind to yourself and kind to others.
Well, I appreciate that. And we'll go out with these couple of commercials. I appreciate both you, Deborah, and you, William, for being on the online dinner party, which I do every Wednesday at 4:00 and all along those lines. And hopefully, I know Deborah's been on this show before, and hopefully, William, you'll make a return trip as well. And we'll have others that'll be joining us, because it's always between 2 to 5 people, and we're just sharing our life stories and learning from each other. So there's really nothing to be scared about. It's just a way for us to learn from each other and to bring some of that kindness and positivity that Deborah was talking about to the world. We need it more now than ever. So that's my little way of doing my little part, and all along those lines. So on that note, we're going to get on out of here, and I'll let y'all get about to the rest of your days as well. But it's been a thoroughly enjoyable conversation. Hope y'all enjoyed it as much as I did, and we're going to get on out of here, and I will catch y'all on the flip side. And I might see you Saturday. I might not see you Saturday, depending on what the snow does and everything like that, William. So we'll see if Indigo makes it to the dance class or not. But hopefully the snow will bypass us, and I'll see her and you on Saturday.
Yes, sir. Thank you so
for
much.
inviting us, Mark. You do a beautiful job. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It was a pleasure to meet you, William.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you, Deborah.
Blessings to everyone.
All right. Good evening.
Bye. Be safe.
Are you looking for money-saving strategies for your business and personal finances? Are you tired of working hard every day with little or nothing to show for it? Contact Prosperity Financial Services, LLC right now for your free financial consultation. Call now to reserve yours today. 804-349-8600. 804-349-8600.
It's time for Bible or Babble. Gather